Well, thanks everyone for coming today. We're really excited to talk to you about immersive audio. My name is Bill Mandel. I'm with Samsung Research America.
I'm Matt Frost. I'm from Google, from the AOMedia team that develops open source media components for web media applications. So we're here today to talk to you about this new immersive audio format that Samsung and Google, and now more recently, the Alliance for Open Media has been collaborating on. We realized the other day that it's been, for the last 4 years, that we've been working with Samsung Research. So we're going to start with an introduction to IAMF, talk to you a little about the technology itself, provide a description of the technology, delve a little at a very high level into the technical details, then talk about one of the most powerful features of IAMF, which is ambisonics, and then briefly touch on what's next for Samsung and YouTube and the development, sorry, Samsung and Google and the development of the technology.
So there's been this, as Matt mentioned, we've had this collaboration for the last maybe 4.5 years. It shows how long it takes to go through standardization to get new formats created and then turning it into product. And so that's why we're here today. You know, we're trying to open the door to turn this into a product. And we'll get to the next slide here. And but we're bringing to it is on the Samsung side, we've got strong device support with TVs and soundbars and other devices such as personal audio. And on the Google side.
And for the Google side, obviously, we bring a whole range of things from platforms that support immersive technologies, browsers, and obviously important streaming services, which have the ability to really open up this new immersive audio experience for billions of users. So the technology we're talking about here has a very sexy name of IAMF. IAMF is the name of the standard, the specification that we've developed in the Alliance for Open Media, or AOMedia, which is this industry standard setting organization that we'll talk a little bit about, but that Samsung and Google are both members of. IAMF stands for Immersive Audio Model and Formats, and it's, as we'll discuss at greater length, really IAMF itself is a modification of a container format that allows for signaling of these various components that produce an immersive experience, those components being a codec, which is used to compress and store and stream an audio signal, and then on the other side, a renderer, which is what we use to map the signal to however many loudspeakers you have to create your experience. And what has really motivated us is our belief that the immersive audio experience is going to be the next stereo. Bill and I both come from the video side of the business. And in video, I think we've all seen this constant march forward towards greater immersive experience from, long ago, from moving from black and white to color. But then over the last couple of decades, we've seen this steady progression through higher resolutions, higher frame rates. Work that Bill and Samsung have done on HDR. We really haven't seen that same progression with audio. And we believe that we are now at that stage where all of a sudden we're going to finally make the move from stereo to more immersive audio experience.
Yeah, that's why audio is so important and why it really needs to be an open format and accessible. And so like this diagram here, we're showing all the different stakeholders in audio. And by having an open format, it's going to enable innovation from anybody, whether you're a content creator or owner or platform. Also, everybody's home is different, so you don't know how you're going to lay out your speakers. You need to have the ability for speaker manufacturers to customize how that works. And when you have an open format where all the data is there about how the audio was constructed and laid out and delivered, you can make the playback in your listening environment optimal finally.
And from a tooling perspective, one of the things that we know from experience is that within the media ecosystem, people like open solutions. People like solutions where they have access to the source code so that they can modify, integrate it, implement it in different ways. If they don't like the settings that we have exposed, they have the ability to go into the code, read the specification, and modify it to their uses. And so we believe that by providing a really open solution, a solution that is available without license fee from any of the creators, that really is going to unleash a whole host of innovation on the creation side, from the content side. bring it into new platforms that might have been blocked out because of either restrictions on licensing from existing solutions or the cost of implementing existing solutions, and that by providing the tools for an immersive audio experience across all of these creation points, endpoints to new streaming services, we're going to see a flourishing of immersive audio content.
So this is the next drill down. This is just to kind of give you a recap of what is immersive, just so that we're all on the same page. And everyone knows what stereo is. It's a couple speakers. For the longest time, you've had 5.1 sound, where you end up with surrounds kind of off to the left and right of you. And then finally, you have immersive is when you add height. And so you have speakers either on the ceiling or on the higher walls that give you the sense of this more immersive environment and with height. And that's where IAMF comes in. And it can even be further extended into these ambisonics that we'll get into later, which, even though that's a complex technology, and we'll talk about that in this speech, at the end of the day, it will play out in any of these types of existing systems as well.
So, as I said, IAMF is this new spatial audio format available from the Alliance for Open Media. The Alliance for Open Media, I think probably many of you are familiar with, but it's an industry organization that was formed almost 10 years ago to try to promote open source technologies, new media technologies that are available without license fee from the creators at the Alliance for Open Media. And AV1, which is a video codec that we have collaborated on developing, is now broadly used by some of the key members of AOM, YouTube, Netflix, Facebook. Many others in the industry are using AV1 at massive scale for streaming services. We expect that IAMF is going to see the same sort of adoption, and it too is available under the same terms as all of our other components. So that means it's available under a very favorable royalty-free licensing terms, very favorable open source licensing terms. We use a license called the BSD Clear, which means that integrators, implementers can take the technology, modify it, improve it, integrate it in any of their applications or devices without any concern that you're going to end up inadvertently open sourcing what you've developed. So it's very favorable for users of the technology. And again, it's available without any fee from the creators of the technology and the working groups at the Alliance for Open Media. And what IAMF brings is, at this stage, for the versions we've released so far, are both a channel-based solution and an ambisonic solution. And we'll go in greater depth into ambisonics, but you can think of channel-based as sort of, as Bill said, classic channel mapping like 5.1 or 7.1.4. And ambisonics is about creating an audio sphere that does an excellent job of sort of perfectly capturing a soundscape. One of the powers of IAMF is that it doesn't require you to choose between either channel-based or ambisonic. It allows the creator to mix and match components. So to potentially create a sound sphere with then various channel-based components to either locate dialogue in a certain place, for the front of the speakers, for instance, or to otherwise achieve the artist's intent through the mix of these various elements. And again, we think that bringing this technology at a very reasonable business terms into all of these new creation devices, streaming services, user-generated content sites, social networks should unleash a whole host of innovation across all types of content types, from user-generated content, music, cinematic content, gaming content, to a bunch of different content types that we are hoping that creators will dream up.
Yeah, even synthetic content. I mean, it doesn't matter because this is an open format and you'll be able to put it into channel-based or ambisonic or both. If you're doing synthetic, even AI-generated audio, this is a perfect container to put it into.
So do you want to take us through the features?
Yeah. So we kind of hit some of it already, but for example, it's going to represent 3D or immersive audio from creation to rendering and mixing. It's going to support higher order ambisonics, which means you can have very sophisticated, I think, 16-channel type microphones that can capture this sound field. Hopefully we'll see more of that, especially for like UGC content where they can have a stick that will pick this up. And it actually is codec agnostic. So this is actually a container that you go and master your audio, all the channels and ambisonics that you need, and then it goes into this container. And then for distribution, it's going to use a compressed technology like Opus or AAC. Right now, we're going to launch with Opus, and so that's what we're mostly focused on. But it's essentially independent of this IAMF container.
Yeah, and I would just add that, as I noted, channel-based and/or ambisonics, meaning that you are able to mix and match what audio element you want. In the future, we have planned on the roadmap and will be updating the community support for object-based coding as well. So that will add another third tool to the toolbox that creators can use to create their soundscape. We're defining rendering and mixing so that you can make sure that you are supporting the same components in the studio that are going to be used on device. And so that means that artists can be certain that what they are creating in the studio, whether it's a home studio using these affordable components or a professional studio, you know that what you're listening to in the studio, you're able to play back on device. AI scene-based analysis is in the works, I think something that Samsung's working on. And then the renderers will allow for rendering of ambisonics to either loudspeakers or binaural, and multi-channel to either loudspeakers or binaural. So to loudspeakers would mean to a speaker array in a home theater, for instance, binaural being headphones or earbuds. And again, the power here is not only the favorable business terms that you get from a solution that's available without royalty from AOM and open source, but it's also highly customizable, both because of these mix and match elements, but also because of the ability for developers to take the open source code and tweak it as they want to meet their needs. So as I said, you can think of IAMF itself, the standard, as being a container standard, which is about how you signal where sounds should come from whatever your speaker array is. But the components are, as Bill said, on the one hand, there are the codecs, and we're just using standard codecs that have been in the industry for a long time, the IAMF container format, and then on the rendering side, we support a number of open source renderers which come from a variety of sources. So for loudspeaker arrays, 5.1, 7.1.4, we use a renderer that was developed within the EBU called EAR, and that supports either channel-based playback or ambisonic playback. For binaural headset playback, we use two different renderers. There's the Bear renderer, which was developed by BBC Research and is open source, and that supports binaural rendering for channel-based playback. If you want ambisonic playback, there is a technology that Google developed. It was a separate team from our team, but our team contributed to it, called Resonance Audio, and that's a very highly regarded ambisonic audio renderer. And then in terms of profiles, we have at present 3 different profiles. I think the one that we would ask people to focus on is bass profile, but each of these profiles supports an increasing number of channel layouts and audio elements. So for simple profile, it's up to 16 channels, 1 audio element. For bass profile, which is the one that, as we'll discuss later, we expect to see in the ecosystem available in streaming services and in devices in 2025, that supports up to 18 channels. And those 18 channels can be used for third order ambisonics and up to 2 stereo channels. And then there's a bass enhanced profile, which supports up to 8 to 28, sorry, this is a terrible color, 28 channels, which again allows you to mix and match with even more audio elements.
So ambisonics is this multi-channel audio format that was invented by Michael Gerson, which, as maybe many of you know, hopefully, it describes a spherical sound that arrives from all directions. So it's trying to capture the sound environment. So it's not like you're sticking a microphone at somebody, you're kind of just capturing the environment. It's not a loudspeaker format, and that's where the complexity comes in, because if you have an ambisonic recording, it's not directly usable. It has to be processed into wherever the speakers ultimately end up. And with ambisonic, you can therefore align with any arbitrary loudspeaker layout. And it has many uses. Of course, it's applicable to live sports, gives the being there, it's able to catch the, I guess, ambience. But that's the point of it. And also I think it's great for like UGC content. So people will be able to capture more like what it's like to be there, what it's like if somebody's interviewing somebody, or you're at some experience and you can have an actual immersive, true immersive sound.
Right, and as Bill said, this is a technology that has been in the literature for a long time, and actually the reason that Google and Samsung started collaborating on this is because back 10 years ago, when the industry was moving very hard to support new VR solutions, there were a couple of teams at Google that were working on ambisonics. The team the AOMedia team was working on adding ambisonics to Opus, and then there was a separate team that was developing the Resonance audio renderer. Both of these were taking advantage of the fact that ambisonics allows you to describe, using audio signal processing, a audio sphere, which does the best job of representing the audio soundscapes that we all hear. The other power of it is it allows you to map any sound to any point on this virtual audio sphere, allowing for a very realistic audio experience. One of the other benefits of this, which is very meaningful for streaming services, for significant streaming services, is that ambisonics is a very efficient way from a data usage perspective to represent all of these audio sounds. One of the other audio elements, rather, when you look at the other solutions out there, and there are very good solutions in the market that support immersive audio, they tend to use as their key tool object-based coding. Object-based coding does a very good job of representing an object in an audio space, but with every new object that you add, you're increasing data rate. So as you start, you will hear about solutions talking about supporting up to over 100 objects, but each of those objects linear scales the data rate. The advantage of ambisonics is that your data rate moves with a number of total channels, but whatever your channel cap is, you're not going to increase your data rate over that. So for a user-generated content site, for instance, which has a massive corpus that you have to store, has to worry about egress costs, it's a very efficient way to capture a soundscape in an efficient manner. And with the ability to add in different elements like channel-based coding, down the road object-based coding, you can add extra audio detail, spending a few more bits, but without blowing your total bitrate budget out the roof.
So with the opportunities with ambisonic, like we've been kind of saying, is new immersive recording environments, ability to capture the sound field as a volume, sort of like at a ball stadium or something. It also leads into media itself just becoming more immersive and volumetric. We really want to get to kind of an immersive 3D media environment and get away from just the flat photographs and static sound or mono sound of a headset. With ambisonic microphone, anyone can make 3D audio easily too, and there's plenty out there already.
So in terms of what's next, again, a great advantage of an open solution, an open source solution, is that you have access not just to the specification, but to the code. And many of the tools that we're talking about right now are available in our GitHub repository. Some additional creation tools are coming soon. So within the GitHub repository, and I think there's a link in the bottom left of this slide, there's a reference software decoder, there's a test suite for implementers to test their IMF decoders to make sure that they're compliant with the specification. There's a reference software encoder, which allows you to go out right now and start to create IMF content. We have an IMF plugin coming for a DAW for the digital audio workstations that creators use to create their content. And so, again, that's one of the real advantages of this solution is an open source solution means that an open source solution available without royalty from the creators means that you can take it, plug it into your DAW without having to spend $100 for a plugin.
And this has already been picked up by FFmpeg, right? So you can already create packages if you're more technical.
That's right, but we expect that for the other commercial solutions that are out there, that within the coming months and year, you'll see IMF plugins available there as well.
So what's the benefit? What we're trying to come across is that it's easy, anyone can access it, but it is very advanced technology because it's the latest in immersive audio. On the content side, we think it's very good for professional studios, maybe for creating advertising, for any kind of YouTuber. And then as well on the device side for the customer, we think this will just be another way to get more immersive audio into people's homes and where they can enjoy it.
Yeah, and I would add that on the studio side, for the larger studios, what we give them is the ability to really modify IAMF and use these various novel features of being able to mix and match elements, also to be able to modify the encoders and to expose settings that might not be available, that we might not have made available when we were developing it. And I think that's a real advantage over a black box solution where you have to talk to the vendor and see if you can convince them to get it on their roadmap. If you want to feature an IMF, provided it's supported within the spec, you can go in and modify the code yourself to add it. Also from the studio perspective, there are a lot of smaller creators, either independent labels or prosumers at home interested in playing around with the technology that either may not be able to afford a proprietary solution or want to invest the hundreds of dollars to experiment with a proprietary solution, or that may be prevented by the licensing terms of the proprietary solution from using tools that they want to use. So one thing we've heard is there's an interest in the industry to do remastering using source separation and some AI tools to take sort of a quick down and dirty effort to mix into spatial content, and that is, for certain solutions, prohibited. We have no such restrictions, and so, again, it's up to the artists and creators to decide how they want to use IAMF. And the same thing, just to focus a little on the advantage of YouTube, one of the things, again, coming from the video side that we know was when 4K came along, there wasn't a ton of 4K content because you were dependent on studios to create 4K content. A great advantage of YouTube is that you have, when this is eventually brought in, or other social networks or user-generated content sites, is you have a whole host of creators who are interested in differentiating themselves, playing with new tools, seeing what they can do. And so I think that's one of the things that we're most excited about, is just this potential for proliferation of content. Yeah. And on the device side, again, the advantage of an open source solution is that there are many devices, especially when you think about the potential for a simple set of inexpensive headphones to enable immersive solution, these low-cost devices that may be capable from a technology perspective of supporting an immersive experience, but where the price point is too high for some of these proprietary solutions. IMF offers a really great way to bring immersive audio into these lower-cost devices and to introduce a whole host of new users for an immersive experience who down the road may upgrade to a higher flagship device, but their first device might be a lower-cost device that otherwise wouldn't be able to support an immersive solution. And from the perspective of streaming services, user-generated content sites, social networks, those services want to be able to target the broadest range of devices, from low-cost devices to high-cost devices. So for them, IMF offers that whole spectrum of scalable immersive solution that they can potentially target.
Yeah, quite simply, it allows you to really differentiate your content with immersive audio to make it stand out from the next thing or the next ad or the next video. It will definitely differentiate to the viewers. So what are we doing next? It's not CES, but we're here today, And we are going to be putting this into some of our TVs next year and sound bars. And so we look forward to telling you more about that here in January coming up.
And from the Google perspective, we are, along with Samsung, our collaborators at AOM, and I should have mentioned, we should have mentioned that our collaborators at AOM who have contributed to this specification in one form or another have included Apple, have included Netflix, have included Vimeo as significant contributors to the technology. We are going to continue to improve the technology I would say, in a manageable way. I think our goal is not to have monthly releases by any means, but as I said, we're working on adding support for object-based coding, even higher order ambisonics, which means support for more channels. And then, although we are not ready right now to announce anything, I think we have big plans for supporting IAMF across a number of platforms at Google and to bring it into other obvious media services that Google that would benefit from immersive audio.
So we are going to so how do you know it's any good? So what we're going to put together also is a certification program, and we'll announce more details about that later. But the idea would be is, if you want, you'll be able to, because it's an open standard, but if you want, you'll be able to take your products and have them certified that they achieve a certain level of quality or performance matching, and we'll have a way to indicate that to consumers here coming up. And it's going to involve different types of listening tests, verifying that the acoustical properties are correct, and even that the signal is correct.
Yeah, and that's really a sort of a service across the ecosystem, because as Bill said, from a consumer perspective, we will have a certification and branding program. You'll be able to go into your Best Buy and see a box that signifies that you've got a tested, compliant IAMF decoder. From a creator's perspective, it means that because we've done the work to certify devices, that you know that all the devices that have the certification live up to a certain standard. And from a device manufacturer's perspective, there are a lot of OEMs that may not be as sophisticated as, say, a Samsung is in terms of developing audio or testing audio. And OEMs, in our experience, are very happy to have certification as sort of somebody looking over the shoulder and saying, yes, you've done a good job, or no, here's a place that you can improve a little bit to make sure that you are producing a really good immersive experience with your devices.
So thank you for coming. If you can go to the next page. Yep. So I think we can take questions outside. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, we'll hang out for a few minutes in the area outside the door here. But yep. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everyone.